Hello, everyone, and welcome to enVision Together, going to our next level of best. I am excited to have a guest with us today who is from Canada. He has wonderful things to share with us about purpose. But before we get there, we're going to have him introduce himself in his own way. But I'd like to first just welcome Ian Chamandy to the show. And Ian, with that, will you go ahead and tell us about yourself in your own way?
Sure, Pamela. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here.
Of course.
I was born and raised in Toronto, and as we were just discussing,
Yeah.
most people don't know that it's North America's third largest city. So, I was born and raised here, and I am divorced now, but I had a family, a wife and a son who is now 27 years old and is a
Wow.
journalist covering politics. My
Mm,
ex and I have a fabulous relationship, so we're
won-
still a lovely little family, and we do family things together.
Wonderful.
Um, yeah, and what else can I tell you?
Really, just anything you want to tell us. What about career wise?
Well, career-wise, I mean, I've had I started out as a copywriter in advertising.
Hmm.
My next job was being a computer consultant. My next job was in television for 15 years.
Wow.
And then for the last 20, I've been doing this. I've been in a strategy business, but my approach to strategy is to define the company's purpose.
Hmm.
And our standard is it's got to be defined in 7 words or less.
Hmm.
And then you use that to guide how you run the company and how you communicate about the
Hmm.
company. So defining your purpose guides everything that you do and say as an organization. So
Hmm.
that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
So
And
you,
then
okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say in the last five, I developed a personal version of that so that you can define your purpose as a person in 7 words or less, and then have that guide how you run your life so that you lead a purpose-filled life.
Wow. Listening to you just now brought back a lot of memories from our previous phone conversation. I remember thinking this is such a unique perspective. So I'm really interested to hear more of what you have to say about it. And I'm sure my audience will as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Thanks for telling us a little bit more about yourself and how you see in the world and how it led you to this development. So let's just start right at the beginning. How do you define purpose?
Ah, actually, can I back you up? That's not the start.
Okay, okay.
Right? And
I mean,
here's what
and let me just throw this in real quick. Um, Not leaning towards the dictionary definition because we all have a sense of that.
no, no, no,
What
don't
are
worry,
you
don't worry.
talking about? Okay,
Don't worry. Don't worry.
okay,
I don't even know what the dictionary definition is. I only
okay,
know it's bad.
okay.
And that's the challenge, right? Like everybody knows purpose. Why do you need to have somebody on your podcast talking about purpose? Everybody knows purpose. Everybody wants purpose. And there's all this chatter about purpose and the benefits of purpose and the deficits if you don't have purpose. I defy you to find anything online that tells you in a clear, concise, and compelling way exactly what purpose is.
Hmm. Mhm.
And so if you ask, and that's why I sort of stopped you and said, hey, that's not the start point. That's step two. Step one is what the heck is it? Right? Now, if you go
I'm
online
sorry.
and you
Repeat that. Step one is what?
is what the heck is it
What the
in the
heck is
first
it?
place?
Okay.
How can you go look for your purpose if you don't even have a definition of it that allows you to know clearly what it is?
Mhm, mhm.
So this idea of what purpose is really important to me because if you go online and you do a Google search and you find academic definitions that are 6, 7, 8 paragraphs, then like what the heck do you do with that? And it's all gobbledygook. It's either academic gobbledygook or it's woo-woo gobbledygook. And to me, like that's what because nobody really knows what purpose is,
Now
it
you've messed us
appears.
all up because we're like, what is gobbledygook? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, blah, 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 you know?
I know.
Um, um, but because, um, what was I going to say? Because nobody knows what it is, uh, they can't take action on it. So the key question, first question, is what is purpose? And if you went out on the street and you asked 100 people what purpose is, I think about 90 of them would say something like why I exist, right? And that sounds like a reasonable definition. And so, what I would say to you is if that's the definition of purpose you're going to go with, how do you figure out why you exist? It's an impossible question to answer, right? So, my
I would
guru.
say religious people would say it differently. They would
Oh,
they would say that God reveals what you're calling your purpose, why you exist. And through meditation, you arrive at this. And it's usually aligned with some talents you have, even sometimes talents you haven't discovered, but having that information, it causes you to move in that direction.
fair enough. But the process that you just described is the same as the process that I'm about to describe,
Okay.
right? So if there is a preordained purpose for you, what you said is through meditation, through this, through that, it's revealed to you, right? Well, you got to play ball.
Yeah.
Right? You have to do something. It's not just that it's preordained. You have to take action
Yeah.
to reveal it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm saying is here's one more technique for
Mm-hmm.
taking action.
Mm-hmm.
If meditation works for you and you come up with a definition for your purpose that works for you, you don't need to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I say, go on your way and just live it. That's great. But for those who are maybe first thinking,
Mm-hmm.
gee, I'd love to know what my purpose is. Or for those people who have been searching for the last 20 years and have been meditating and have been waiting for it to be revealed to them and it hasn't worked yet,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe this might work for you.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it is a secular approach
Mm-hmm.
that can give you a spiritual outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I am going to say, and I will be interested, Pamela, to see how you feel about this definition as a practicing Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what Pablo Picasso said is the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose is to share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I just rephrased that to make it a little simpler because, that's my thing, which is your purpose in life is to find your gift and share it with the world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you just for the moment accept that that's a good working definition for purpose, then what it means is purpose is your gift.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way I articulate that, just slightly different, is it is that one thing at the end of the day that makes you uniquely remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's your superpower. We are now trying to identify what your superpower is, that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. And what I love about this definition is that most people out there don't think there's anything that makes them uniquely remarkable. Yeah. And I'm here to say everybody has something that makes them uniquely remarkable, and you just got to do some work to figure it out.
Right. And
okay. So sorry, let me just
mm-hmm.
finish by saying, okay, now we've arrived at what I consider the starting line, mm-hmm. which is a definition for purpose, which you can take action on.
Hmm.
Find your gift. Find what makes you uniquely remarkable. And then the second question is, okay, how the heck do you do that?
Yeah.
And I have a process for doing that.
Wonderful.
All right, I'll stop talking for a minute and I'll stop this monologue and
And let us
convert it into a
dialogue.
dialogue. Yeah.
No, no, it was good stuff. And I really simply just wanted to agree with you, actually. You're saying you're approaching it from a secular point of view, but it aligns very much from my Christian perspective. And I think you already knew that. Knew
You
that.
know what? No. You know
Uh,
what? I haven't really had any kind of extended conversation with anybody about how this fits into a religious framework. So
mm,
no, I wasn't really sure. When I said to you, I would be
mm,
I would be interested to hear
uh,
what your perspective is as a practicing Christian on whether this does align
it
or
does.
not.
It does. Yeah. It aligns perfectly. I guess the difference is for for me, I would explain it the same way, but it would still be very God centered. But you didn't say anything that I disagree with in terms
Right.
of how that operates. So I'm a firm believer that we all have a gift. We all have something. I agree with you 100,000% that too many of us believe that we don't have a superpower. And I think if you're living and breathing and on this earth and you have something and you're doing yourself and the world a disservice if you don't discover what that is and then put it to use, not just for yourself, but for the world. I believe our gifts are given to serve. You have something to offer. Um,
And you have an obligation to find out what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're in agreement there. And even the whole premise of my show is that very point. So that's why I have people who are artists, who are business people, who are spiritual people, who are uh, whatever your thing is in the world coming on my show. And that's the whole thing. Share your gift with everyone. Help everyone get to their next level of best in the area where you are expert, where you shine. Help other people shine. And we all
Mhm.
need each other. And so where you're strong in a certain area, I can glean so much information from you that'll help my life. And then there's things about me that you could glean or other people could glean that will help them because none of us have all the answers, but we have something and we have some.
Pamela, the only way for what you just described to happen is if I know what your gift is and you know what my gift is.
That's
I
right.
can't, sorry, I can't take advantage of your gift unless you're able to communicate in a clear, concise, and compelling way what your gift is. Maybe what I could do is just give you an example of somebody's purpose
Mm-hmm.
so that rather than talking in the abstract,
Okay.
we can get a little real,
Sure.
okay? So I had a business colleague have
Mm-hmm.
um, and she was the CEO of this company for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not her first CEO gig. And we were having a drink after work, and she said to me, I'm bored because the company is running itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I need to look for my next engagement. I said, that's awesome. That's very exciting. And she said, no. She said, no, it's not awesome. It's not exciting. I'm scared to death. And I said, why? And she said, because when I joined this company 5 years ago, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. And all of the employees were like shell shocked and they were beaten down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to put my head down, put the blinders on, and just fix this company.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 years later, I look up and the company's running itself now. So, we did a good job and I'm bored. And uh, and she said, but when I look, I felt like I had the blinders on for 5 years. And then it's like, groundhog, right? It's the spring and you come up and you go, oh, how have things changed? And she thought that the world passed her by. while she was doing over here doing this for 5 years. And she felt out of touch. And she felt like, I'm not sure that my skills are relevant in the world anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone's going to want me,
Hmm.
right? And like, if you knew this woman, you knew how ludicrous this was. She graduated from high school at 16.
Mhm.
She graduated with an honors or sorry, honors master. I don't know if you can get an honors, but a master's degree when she was 20.
Mhm.
She had run three. This is her third company. Her parents were overachievers, so she genetically just inherited all this brilliance,
Mhm.
and she lost her confidence,
Wow.
right?
Hmm.
Because she went from, I'm running this company, I'm the queen of the hill, I know exactly what I'm doing, to, oh no, what if I'm, the world has passed me by. Now, this is what we call a trigger event.
Mhm.
And a trigger event has
Do
three
you mind if
elements.
I ask you what age she
Oh,
was when this happened? Do you have a rough idea of her age?
mid 40s,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
Hmm.
So she had lots of experience. So, but she is experiencing a trigger event, and a trigger event has three elements. The first element is whatever the event is, and hers is career change. Hers is career change by choice, could also be by force, right? You could be laid off or fired.
Hmm.
Um, Graduation from university is a trigger event. Um, Divorce, medical emergency, retirement, empty nest.
Yeah.
These are all trigger events. So the event itself is the first thing. The second thing is to understand that a trigger event creates uncertainty about the future,
Hmm.
right? So she said, when I looked up at what my potential future was, I thought the world had passed me by.
Wow.
So I didn't know if I could get a job, if anybody would value me, blah, blah, blah. I
Wow.
didn't know. All this uncertainty. Now, what does uncertainty do to us? It causes anxiety,
Yeah.
right? So we're, anywhere from upset to flipping out. And um, so I said to her, let's go through this process. So I get her to talk, what do you like? What don't you like? Blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, this is conjuring up the image of a platoon. I don't know, what the proper military grouping of soldiers is, but imagine, this group of soldiers that has just been through hell and back, battle. And now they're at the edge of a minefield.
Hmm.
And she's the new leader. And she stands in front of them and she says, don't worry, I've been here before. I know how to get you to the other side. Follow me and I'll get you safely to the other side of this minefield. And you can imagine these people who are just so freaked out. It's like, oh, thank God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please get me to the other side. And I said to her, so, I'm like the phrase leading safely through the minefield comes to mind. And
Hmm.
she said, that's me. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. That's who I've been. And that's who I want to be going forward.
Hmm.
So this was the thing that made her uniquely remarkable, is the ability, the harder the situation is, the
Hmm.
smarter she gets, the
Hmm.
more engaged she becomes.
Hmm.
And if the situation is too easy, she's like, no, there's no challenge here. So leading safely through the minefield represented that notion.
Hmm.
And you can imagine if she's coming into a new business where everybody is shell shocked because this company has just been in such bad shape for so long. And she says, don't worry, I've got a plan and I'm going to lead you safely to profitability. And here's my plan. And they go, yeah, 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 yeah. I'll
Hmm.
follow you.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, sorry, let me just do this last little piece here because this is also an important point about purpose. At the end of the day, the dirty little secret about purpose is it's just a decision-making tool. I have a decision to make. This is my purpose. How does my purpose tell me to make this decision? So her decision was go out and find a new CEO gig. So she talks to her executive search friends. And this guy comes back to her and he says, I've got the perfect gig for you. This is a global company, so it's a step up. It's doing well. It's got an excellent executive team. It just needs a first-rate CEO to come in and, continue to steer the ship. And what do you think her response is? No, not interested. Why? Because it's a fully functioning company that's doing just fine. I don't like that. I'm about leading safely through the minefield. Mm-hmm. I want something that's a much bigger challenge than that. And he says, oh, I have a steaming pile of garbage over here, but I'm afraid to show it to any of my clients. And she says, show me. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to engage my mind. That's what's going to give me a buzz while I turn it around. Right? So she uses it as a decision-making tool to decide whether this is a good option for her going forward or not. Did that make sense?
Yeah. I was just, you, in your story, covered my next 3 questions. So I was trying to figure out, where do I start now?
Okay, so, I can tell you the next sort of logical place to go.
I actually do want to hear about your 3-step model.
Okay. So it started as a corporate product, mm-hmm. right? And I started this company 20 years ago with a partner. Mm-hmm. Sadly, he died about 6 months into COVID, not of COVID, but so all of this was jointly created. Mm-hmm. And we started out as just a general service, almost like management consultants, but we started finding these pieces and we would repeat them with client after client. And it came to the point where we were repeating these things over and over again, and they slowly coalesced and crystallized into a methodology. Mm-hmm. And so it sort of becomes like a meat grinder, right? Where you come to us and you say, yeah, I want that outcome. And we say, great, here's how you do it. Not, we're going to customize to you. Here's what you have to do to follow our process to put in, wonderful raw meat and have this fabulous tasting sausage come out the other side. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 parts to it. The first part is to identify as a company what makes you uniquely remarkable. One thing. Now, you can imagine, right? You look at a company like IBM, been around for 110 years, I think, right? It's always been successful. And you could say a company like that, big global company, there's not one thing that makes it uniquely remarkable. And I'm going to tell you, yes, there absolutely is. Mm-hmm. Because what role did IBM play in the business community to its business customers back in the 40s and 50s? Back then, it was a supplier of the most essential business technology to big companies. Mm-hmm. What's it doing today? It's supplying the most essential business technology to Fortune 500 companies around the world, mm-hmm. right? It's doing the same thing 100 years later. Mm-hmm. How did it do that with all that employee turnover over the years? Well, the reality is that your purpose already exists inside you as a person, right? To your point, it's there. It just needs to be revealed. Mm-hmm. And to the company as well, to companies as well. Mm-hmm. That purpose kept IBM on the same track mm-hmm. for a century, mm-hmm. right? So find out what makes you uniquely remarkable. And our standard is to define it in 7 words or less. Okay. So now you know your superpower as a company. And what your superpower should do is it should guide how you operate and guide how you communicate. So step 2 is to say, okay, what's the story of your purpose? What's the top level narrative that will guide your branding, your marketing, your sales, all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And the third step is to say, let's look at all the parts of the business and see if that part is aligned with your purpose. Excuse me. If it is, awesome. We don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not aligned with your purpose, we say, what do we need to do to shift it, to get it aligned with purpose? Because it's never that far off. And so there's like, one or two lines of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a corporate blueprint. Define your purpose in 7 words or less. Design how it's going to operate the company and design how it's going to communicate the company.
Wow.
And then what happened was COVID hit. And I said to my business partner, we ain't getting any business for like a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So we got to figure out what to do. So I got my coaching certification. Mm-hmm. And I went out to be a coach, an executive coach, but I knew I was generic. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, I wonder how the market is going to talk to me and tell me to specialize. And it happened in the very first phone call. Wow. I was talking to a prospect, and he said, COVID has got me rethinking my life. I don't like my career. I don't like what I'm doing with my life. I want to live a life of meaning and purpose. And I said, awesome. What's your purpose? And he said, I don't know. And what that made me realize is I could take this behemoth that I co-created for companies, mm-hmm. strip out the stuff that didn't apply to an individual, mm-hmm. add in a little bit more stuff that did apply to an individual, mm-hmm. and voila, I have a personal blueprint to define your purpose in 7 words or less and use it to lead a life of meaning and purpose.
Wow.
And then a five-time corporate client of mine, a guy who I have an enormous amount of respect for, said, oh, I've got an already created online infrastructure that we can just plunk on top of your personal blueprint. And instead of you finding purpose with people one-on-one, you can offer it to millions of people. And I went, heck yeah, let's go. So we're in the final stages of the development of that. We designed the course, built it, put a test cohort through in the fall. They gave us tons of great feedback. We tore the course apart, put it back together again. We were about to launch, and then we realized, oh, it is so easy now to build AI into this, right into this. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing now. And oh my, I am so excited mm-hmm. because it just streamlines it, makes it so much easier and so much more fun. It is.
So you told me previously that what you do when you coach people is like carving a stone. That is very interesting imagery.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that approach.
Okay, it's a metaphor that I stole from a professor at Northwestern University who wrote a book called Gödel, Escher, and Bach. Gödel is a mathematician. Escher is the artist. We all had, posters in our university dorms. And Bach is, the piano player. Mm-hmm. He calls those 3 shadows cast from the same stone. And his book attempts to identify the stone. And the way I borrow it is I say your purpose is your stone. And everything that you do and say is a shadow cast from that stone. So it's related to the stone. Everything you do, every shadow is purpose driven. Mm-hmm. If you know your purpose.
Right. And I like that. And that's part of the reason I wanted to hear you say more. I had a general idea, but actually what you share is even a bit poetic. I know it's someone else's words that you're sharing, but shadow cast from a stone. You said something to that effect. That's beautiful imagery, and I think we can all relate. I think one of the things we do is actually think about that when we hear those words. If we think of ourselves as a stone and someone's working on us, even if it's with a coach, carving out to get, it's almost like the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
So I like that we keep emphasizing and reiterating that everyone has value. We just have to dig for it. We have to go mining for the gold.
Exactly, exactly. At one point, the statue of David was just a piece of rock, and his name is slipping my mind. But he saw a raw chunk of rock, and he said, "David's inside."
Yes. That's a beautiful way to look at it as well. So, what do you say to people who may not feel that they have a particular purpose, and why should they care to explore this topic? There's some people who have a sense of hopelessness, is some alert telling them there's something more, but they don't know what more looks like. What about those people who are going through life and they almost seem content to not live a life of great purpose, or um I don't know. What do you say to these things that might
Well, what
turn
I'll say
someone
is,
on?
what I'll say is, if you're content, you'll have no motivation to find purpose. If you're not content, um, then the reason that I say that everybody has something that makes them uniquely remarkable, aka purpose,
Mm-hmm.
is that the components of purpose are three things, three buckets: your beliefs, your wants, and your talents. And your talents can be ones that you're born with: beautiful singing voice, great brain. Not I'm saying I'm a great brain. I'm just pointing to the brain. So I didn't want me to be bragging there.
No, I
Um,
mean, somebody's
yeah,
got to do it. I mean, I think as long as you're not just terribly arrogant, confidence is fine.
right. No, but I mean, so those are your talents, or it could be playing guitar, something you pick up along the way, right? Bruce Springsteen. What I'll tell you about Bruce Springsteen is his purpose is not to be an entertainer.
Hmm.
And I think Bruce Springsteen would tell you that. He would say, "Oh, no, that's just one aspect of me. Of course, it's the aspect everybody knows the best, but it's just one aspect."
Yeah.
Okay, then. If your purpose is not to be an entertainer, what is? And being an entertainer is a shadow cast from that purpose, right? So then so everybody has a set of beliefs, a set of wants, and a set of talents,
Mm-hmm.
right? So and everybody has their own unique mixture of that.
So you can have this purpose, but then various shadows cast from that purpose. So it can look to the world that you're kind of, I don't know, multifaceted, more involved in things, but it's really stemming from that one purpose.
Do you know Joni Mitchell, the singer?
I have to say I don't. I
Okay,
know Bruce
so
Springsteen though.
Joni Mitchell is one of the most influential. Like a lot of current day modern musicians will tell you that she was one of their primary influences.
Mm.
She has not written a song in decades because she considers herself a painter. So her music is one shadow cast from her purpose. Her painting is another shadow. Both of them fall in the arts area. Um, but that was just my point about
Mm.
what you appear to the world is not necessarily your purpose. It just may be one shadow
Mm-hmm.
cast from your
I like
purpose.
I like the more we keep talking about this shadow cast from the stone, I'm liking I'm playing around in my mind. I'm not saying that it's settled yet, but you got me thinking about even the way I look at purpose.
Mm.
Um,
So I'll
so
interview you now. How so?
well, I mean, the whole concept of there's certain things that I define as my purpose, but maybe it's just one of those
Right,
shadows.
right. You got to separate the
Mm-hmm.
shadow from the purpose.
And
And
one,
so you got to dig really deep. That's the thing. It's not a
yeah,
superficial process.
right. And one thing that you mentioned in a previous conversation was that, let me see, it went through my mind. Let me see if I can get it back. You
I
said,
do that all the time.
wait a minute. Maybe it'll come back. It's not coming back right now.
I have a friend who says I have learned to keep your place for you. So when you say, "Oh, where was I?" or "I lost my thread," she always just knows now to keep the place so that she can kick me back online.
I have an aunt who does something like that. Man, and it was a good point.
Well, why don't you think about that? Because I actually have to answer the second half of that question, which
Oh,
is,
sure.
which is what do you get from it, right? And I
Mhm.
think there's three things. What, like you said something about people who don't think they need a purpose, right? Well, you
Mhm.
don't need one, but here's the thing: when you have one, benefit number one, you know your superpower. You have now articulated your superpower in 7 words or less.
Mhm.
And that's great for a lot of people, but it's even greater for the people who never thought that they had a superpower. And that gives you confidence. You now know you have a superpower, and because it's in your blood, no one can take it away from you. No
Mhm.
matter how hard you feel beaten down, no matter how hard people
Right.
try, they cannot take your superpower away from you. So that's benefit number one.
Mhm.
Benefit number two is it's all about what I said before about it being a decision making tool. You can design a life of meaning and purpose when you know in 7 words or less what makes you uniquely remarkable.
And I
And
know
then,
you have another point, but my thing that
okay,
I
okay,
forgot
yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember now, it piggybacks on what you just said.
Hey,
You mentioned that you can use it as a decision making tool, and you shared with me an example where someone was presented with an awesome opportunity and they turned it down because it
right.
didn't align with their purpose. And I think that's a powerful guide and a powerful thing for people to consider, because otherwise you get all jack of all trades, master of none, because you have a little bit of talent here, or you just because you can, is that necessarily
Yeah.
what you should do? So that decision making tool part and knowing the why of what you're doing is so important, because I think some of us get stuck in life and lose what sense of purpose we did have because we got stuck in something that we do well, but it's not
Yes.
necessarily what we should be doing.
Right. And the thing you do well is probably what you'll continue doing, but you may do it in a different way. You may see it in a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make those decisions, and here's a really important point, if you make a decision that's aligned with your purpose defined in 7 words or less, what you're really saying is, I am making a decision that is aligned with my beliefs, wants, and talents,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're making decisions. So you're confident that
Right.
the decisions that you're making are aligned with you.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we are coming to the close of our interview, but there's a question that I ask every single guest, and it's simply this. Suppose everybody forgets everything we just shared. What is the one gem, the one thing you would say, but please don't forget this one thing? It's so vitally important.
So, what I would say, whether you think this journey you're on in life is one phase of a continuous, or whether you think this is it, one and done, in that window, you should know your superpower
Hmm.
because it'll give you confidence and it'll give you a tool to live a better life.
Mm-hmm.
Know your superpower. It will make your life better if you
And
know your
know that you
superpower.
have one. You definitely have one.
Definitely have one because you've got beliefs, wants, and talents.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the raw materials
Mm-hmm.
of what makes you uniquely remarkable. So everyone has it.
That's awesome. So
Mm.
my last question is just simply, will you tell the audience how they might stay in contact with you, get your books, get your coaching,
Sure.
stay connected with you on social media? Anything you want to share along those lines?
Yeah, it's the two websites you can see down in the bottom corner there. Purpose U, right? It's just the word purpose with a U at the end, as in Purpose University, right? So purposeu.co. If you go there, course is not open yet. You can leave your email, and we will let you know the moment it's available. And then if you're a corporation and you want to be purpose driven, then you go to 7words.biz and you'll see that business there. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Absolutely. Now, on my end, I'm not seeing the information that you said. I see your name, but we can certainly put it in the show notes. So,
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I can see it.
okay. Well, thanks so much, Ian. This has been a delightful conversation, and you have a very interesting perspective on purpose. And I love that you took the business model and made it applicable for individuals. And you even got me rethinking things. So I'm going to dig a little deeper. I'm going to listen to this episode again and see what I come up with. I really love the talk of being a stone and having shadows cast from that stone. I'm going to really pontificate around all of that. Thanks so much. You've been a wonderful guest. And so glad you came.
Thank you, Pamela. It's great talking to you.